Hi there, Working Homeschool Mom. This is Charlotte from Charlotte Jones 24/7 and My Little Homeschool. And this is episode number 125 of the Strike a Balance podcast for Working Homeschool Moms. If you're new here, welcome. I'm so glad that you've landed on this podcast, and I hope you're going to find tons of episodes to inspire you and to help you on your Working Homeschool Mom journey. And a little bit about me, I'm a coach for new working homeschool moms, so I can help you figure out that messy beginning so that you can take your first steps with confidence. And I would love to personally invite you to the WHM Collective on Patreon. It is a membership of working homeschool moms where you can get exclusive content. And if you become a WHM Collective insider, you have some really wonderful bonuses, free coaching, monthly workshops, email access to me, and lots of exclusive resources that are going to help you on your working homeschool mom journey. But come and check it out. You can join for free, the WHM Collective on Patreon, and I will link that in the show notes. So today's episode is a really, really great one. I've so enjoyed speaking to Danii Oliver. Danii Oliver is an unschooling advocate. They are an author, a podcaster, as well as working in tech. Just an incredible person. They have so many great insights into unschooling, and it was absolutely wonderful speaking to them. I learned so much, and I'm sure that you are going to as well. If unschooling is something that you are curious about, if you want to have a really authentic learning environment for your kids, then this is something that you want to listen to. But before we get to the episode, I'd be ever so grateful if you could rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast, or you could forward it to another new working homeschool mom who needs some support, who needs some encouragement, and who needs some inspiration. Thank you so much, and enjoy the episode. Hi there, and welcome to the Strike a Balance podcast for working homeschool moms. This is Charlotte Jones. I'm your host, and I am a podcaster, a speaker, a writer, and a homeschooling coach, specifically for working homeschool moms. I've been homeschooling my neurodivergent twin boys since 2017, and I've been a working homeschool mom since 2017. So I know it can feel really overwhelming to keep all the balls in the air all the time. So each week I chat about tips and strategies for being a happy and thriving working homeschool mom. I cover things like time management, homeschooling, mindset, and lots of other juicy topics like that. I also speak to awesome and inspiring women who manage to juggle homeschooling and work successfully and find out what their secrets are. And I also welcome experts who can help you on your working homeschool mom journey. I have lots of ways to support you, so be sure to check them out in the show notes. You can download my time audit as your first step to managing your time better. I have a Facebook group for working homeschool moms that you can join as well. And be sure to sign up to my newsletter for weekly updates. And if you need additional support, you can join the WHM Collective, which is a supportive community of working homeschool moms where we delve deeper into topics that are going to help you thrive as a working homeschool mom. Or if you need one-to-one support, be sure to book in a session with me. I'm so excited for you to be here, and I know you'll get so much value out of this episode. So let's get started. Working homeschool mom, I know how overwhelming it can be to choose a math curriculum for your homeschool. That's why I'd like to tell you about the online math curriculum we've been using for years, ctcmath.com. As far as math curriculums go, it has loads of great features that solve lots of the math issues we've had, and I know a lot of homeschooling families have. Here are just a few of the many features that we really like. Questions are adaptive, which means the interactive questions change in difficulty depending on the student's ability. The program uses a smart algorithm that tracks the student's progress and delivers questions based on their exact needs. The student doesn't even know this is happening, helping them to build confidence and master math concepts. Concepts are delivered through video tutorials and summaries which are clear, complete, and easy to follow. It's like having your very own teacher. This ensures your children understand something before they're asked to practice it. And then for us parents, CTC Math has extensive reports which are so valuable in monitoring your child's progress and spotting any gaps. And they offer a 12-month money-back guarantee if this curriculum is not for you and your family. CTC will provide a full refund, no questions asked. But I think the most important thing is a whole lot less stress when it's math time for both parents and kids. You get to outsource math with confidence, and your kids get a fantastic tailor-made program that makes learning and mastering math enjoyable and positive. Visit CTC Math today to start your free trial. CTC Math is also offering you, listener, an amazing special. When you go to ctcmath.com/MLH, you can get a half price discount plus a bonus 6 months for free. That's ctcmath.com/MLH. Today, I'm beyond thrilled to invite Danii Oliver onto the podcast. Danii is a passionate storyteller, children's picture book illustrator, and an unschooling facilitator, following and supporting their children through their natural learning journeys. With a diverse background that spans anthropology, fine arts, and software engineering, Danii has harnessed the eclectic expertise to create the immersive Unschool Discoveries series. When not dedicating 2 years to authoring and illustrating their first book, Danii offers product officer services empowering CEOs to develop innovative consumer goods and tech products. Thank you so much for taking the time to chat to me today, Danii.
Thank you so much for having me, Charlotte. I really appreciate this opportunity.
So today we're diving into a topic that's really having a moment, and I think that really needs to be spoken about, and that's unschooling. So I'm really, really excited to dive in. So maybe you can start by telling the listener what led you to choose unschooling as an educational approach for your children.
I mean, in the simplest form, I chose it because of respect. I did not grow up in an environment that respected my childhood nor my person. And so I did not want to raise people or bring people to earth where they too would go through the kind of traumas that I had growing up. I mean, I was treated badly in school. I was treated badly in religious institutions, even in the hospital system. And I think that's where my unschool journey was really cemented, was when I walked out of the hospital system. I walked out of the birthing center system, and I walked home and started making choices for us that were not the status quo.
So that sounds amazing, but I can imagine it took a lot of bravery to kind of opt out of the system. And I think that's what makes people so nervous about unschooling. It's because we're so used to the system and to education being a certain way and medicine being a certain way and all that kind of stuff, that it's hard to opt out of it because there are so many people around who are like, what are you doing? This is not the right way to do it. This is how it's always been done.
Thank you. I don't really see it as bravery. I just saw it as I was being disrespected and life wasn't good. And I had to do something else because I wasn't exiting the matrix. So I had to do something different.
That's amazing. I love that. So, how can you ensure that your child receives a well rounded education through unschooling? Because I think this is also another thing that people are worried about, because we're so indoctrinated into what education should be like, that we think, okay, that they're not going to be well rounded if we just allow them to follow their interests, if we let them lead. But how can we ensure that they receive a well rounded education?
So that's a very good question that I know a lot of parents have concerns about. And when you think about well rounded, if you think of it in terms of what's normal or standard, then I say to that, like, there is no such thing as normal, right? But if you look at it from well-rounded from perspective of learning tools that your child needs to succeed in the world without you, that would include things like cooking, cleaning, math so they don't get cheated, reading and communication skills, gardening, the things they didn't teach us in school, taxes, finances, how to budget, how the world works and how it differs in different ways in different places. For that, I'd say it happens naturally. It really does. And I know it's hard for parents to wrap their minds around, well, how does it happen naturally? It didn't happen for me. And that's because a lot of us went to school where they didn't allow us to learn these things, right? So it happens through daily inclusive engagement in our family. I love your podcast because you talk about working homeschool moms and how to balance that work life and being a mom full time. Well, my kids are very much a part of my life and my business. There is no separation. So they get that well rounded education from seeing me do everything, from going to business meetings with me, and when they have something to say, speaking up. When is a certain topic for the business meeting, they learn about the topic so that they feel informed and motivated to speak on their behalf because they know that the work that I do feeds them, or that the work that their dad does feeds them. So when kids have a concept of understanding of why am I learning something? Because I need to do it to get from point A to point B. That sort of well-roundedness happens because the education is immediately used in a way that's meaningful and impactful to the child's life.
Yes, and I love the way that you use the word inclusive in the family, because I think that's such an awesome thing about homeschooling, is being able to include your kid in like day-to-day life. My kids went to public school, I think it was for a year, and I felt so utterly disconnected from them. You know, like they're living this whole other life that you have no clue about, and it was pretty traumatic. Besides the point, but then now we can include them in every single thing, and there's so much learning that happens that's not just book learning or academic learning.
Yeah, and the learning never stops, right? Like they're constantly learning. I mean, Sunday afternoon, they're asking me a million questions, and that's okay, right? There is no time for learning to happen. But on top of just like what happens naturally, in the beginning, I created a system for myself, like a way of thinking. I call it the 5 E's methodology. And it was a way for me to look at what was happening in our lives and justify to my inner alarms that everything is okay. And basically, what it does, it looks at environment, it looks at exposure, engagement, experimentation, and endeavors. And I watch my kids go through these processes. It starts with me in the environment. What is around? What are all these objects in the bedroom, in the bathroom, in the living room, in the office? Making sure they know all the things in their space. Once they know the things, I expose them. That means we leave our environment, we leave our comfort zone, and we understand that not only are there blue jays and cardinals, but there are peacocks and ostriches and all the kinds of animals and other kinds of people. And after that, I'm hands off. I leave them alone. I let them engage, make mistakes, ask their own questions, and then they move into experimentation. They come up with hypotheses and they do their own observations. And they're like, Mommy, I need to research this. And eventually it leads to an endeavor where they want to do something with that knowledge, right? Maybe it's a project or a piece of art, or maybe it's a business idea that they have. But eventually they want to do something because they're so excited about what they now know, they want to share it.
That's beautiful. I love that. And I think also we need to always remember that kids are naturally so curious. They want to learn. It's like school sometimes dampens that, I think, where you're kind of forced to learn things that are not appropriate or not valuable, or, you know, you can't see the connection to everyday life. But the kids want to learn, they want to experience things. And I think if you can tap into that, I mean, the world is their oyster. I mean, anything is possible for them.
Oh, absolutely. They are so curious. And that's the basis of why, I do what I do, is to allow that curiosity to flourish. Because when I was curious in school, I got in trouble all the time.
Absolutely. Talking too much, asking too many questions, all
Yep.
those kind of things.
Yep.
Absolutely. And then another topic, which is also a big one in homeschooling, unschooling, all the types of home education, is socialization. People worry about it. Obviously, school seems like the obvious place for kids to socialize very easily. So, what are your thoughts, especially like from a unschooling lens, about socialization?
Oh, that's a big one that a lot of people ask about. I'd like to first start by saying that homeschool unschooling is not living in a bubble, other than the bubble that is planet Earth. We live here, we leave the house, we go where people are, we talk to strangers, of course, stranger danger. But when we're out shopping, when we go to the butchery, when we go to the park, when we are with family, the gym, neighbors, we talk to people and we interact with people naturally, not because they're the same age as us, not because they're the same gender or because they're in the same grade, but because we are out in the world with people. Here in Texas, people are curious. They will tell you their life story just in standing in the grocery store. So it's a lot easier than in New York where people are like, why are you talking to me? But I really feel like from experience, when I was a child and then with other family members who are children now in school, school is not a place for socialization. One, school teaches really deep seated segregation practices, from segregating gender, segregating age, segregating learning speeds. Like, that is one of the worst things that we do to kids is, oh, we're going to put you in a special ed class and label you as different because you learn in a way that we don't want to honor or respect. And so socialization doesn't happen at school. It's sit down, it's shut up, it's four walls, there's no engagement, you're not really allowed to talk to adults. So when I interact with school kids, it's hard for me to have a conversation with them because they're just like, I don't want to speak out of turn. They're like very timid. So that socialization is not happening the way homeschoolers and unschoolers are out in the world. They go off, they have these full blown conversations with children and adults, and then people come back to you telling you the story. And it's like, okay, okay, good to know. But yeah, I've not seen socialization happen in school.
Absolutely, yes. So I always say that socialization at school is maybe easier, but it's definitely not more natural. It's not more authentic. It's not more, organic. It's like, yeah, like you said, incredibly controlled, I think.
Yeah. I mean, think about the concept of bullying, right? Like, where does bullying come from? Homeschoolers and unschoolers do not experience bullying. Bullying is someone being told something is wrong with you or something is different, or kids may be finding out about someone's home life that is different from theirs and making fun of them of it just because they're different. And I can't show my kids like old school books or old school TV shows that include bullying because they will immediately just throw a fit and be like, I'm not exposing myself to this, and walk out the room. They don't feel like that's a form of entertainment, and they never understood how it could be justified in the past, right? So it's like, if people don't like you or don't get along with you and you're stuck with 20 to 30 people and that's your whole world, it can really mess with a person's head because you have no one to socialize with if you don't fit into the mold that is the norm.
Absolutely. I have neurodivergent kids that were bullied. It's like from the moment they stepped into public
Mm.
school, and we were like, no, this cannot carry on. So, what do you do if people are, very negative about unschooling, or if, they don't understand the concept? How do you kind of deal with naysayers or people who are skeptical about unschooling as an educational method or methodology or way of life?
I mean, in the simplest terms, dealing with misconceptions about unschooling is walk away. Like, no one's misunderstanding is going to put food on our table or change our lifestyle. So I know a lot of people get caught up on that. Like, what am I going to tell my family? If your family's not paying your bills, it doesn't matter. But for those who are interested and who want to understand, we explain it to them that it's natural learning. We explain it how adults learn. Like, when you need to learn something to get from point A to point B, you go and teach yourself. Kids have the ability to do the same exact thing, whether they can read or not. We live in one of the best times in human history where we have so many forms of sharing information, from games to shows to videos, podcasts. My kids listen to PhD scientists on a daily basis. I didn't have access to that. So I try to explain it like it's just natural learning. When you need something, when you're curious about something, you go find it out and you go down the rabbit hole until you're satisfied. If that's not enough, I give them my book because it seems like the illustrations, the pictures help people really get it. When I try to explain it, it's like too academic. But when they see the pictures, they're like, "Oh, that's your life." It's like, yeah, that's it. And so that's what we do. We illustrate and showcase for folks what the lifestyle looks like, and people are starting to get it. They're starting to tap into things where they're like, "You know what? I didn't really like that part of my childhood, but I justified it because I thought that was the only way."
Absolutely. And that's why deschooling is so important as well. And it's not just about education. I find deschooling has helped me in terms of like business, in terms of how I like schedule my day, things like that. If you can just let go of any of those preconceived notions about how things should be, then you can figure out a way where it can be like whatever you want it to be.
Exactly.
So, what kind of resources do you use to help your kids in their education and while unschooling? Obviously, we're going to talk about your book, but what other things do you use to also help your kids to learn? Any resources that could be useful for people who are thinking about unschooling?
I just mentioned a few of them. Of course, first and foremost, there are our score of senses, because we now know that there aren't just five senses. We tap into all of those senses and listen to them. I wouldn't say that we really rely on anything outside of, our ability to perceive information in the world around us, because we understand that everything is changing. So we live in the moment, we engage, make mistakes, we observe, we ask questions, we play, we seek answers to all of our questions. We seek entertainment that leads to learning and sticks because it's relevant. And my kids have full access to all forms of information that we just mentioned, from the books, the internet, library, experts, podcasts, video games, documentaries, subject matter videos, movies, conversations that we have on a daily basis. I speak to my kids just like they're my age, like we're the same age, and we give them the real, real. And the reason why we don't rely on anything is because we know that information is always changing. Like just the other day, my kids were learning about camels and how their humps are full of fat, and that through their body's metabolism, they create ATP to release the nutrients in the water. My mind was absolutely blown because in school I was taught there was just water in those humps. And my little kid brain for years tried to figure out, how do they get the water out? Do they vomit it? Do they like secrete it and then absorb it again? Like my brain was just trying to figure all these things out because I was taught misinformation. So we don't rely on anything because scientific evidence for new things are being found every day, including the atom. Like what we were taught about the atom, the way it looks, was the idea of one guy that he had in a room by himself, probably under the influence of something, and we just ran with it. But then years later, some smart people who with diverse backgrounds said, let's look at this. And they ran experiments and found that what we think is an atom is so far from the truth. And so we're always open to learning, not relying on things of the past and saying, how can we discover more, but also discover for ourselves and honor our own discoveries.
Yes, I absolutely love that. And it's also kind of teaching our kids how to gather information as well is such an important skill, because obviously there is so much information and there's also trash information out there. So it's like, making sure they know how to gather the information successfully, or, in a discerning way, I think is so important as well.
Yeah. And that comes down to believing our kids, right? When they're having experiences, when they're going through something internally, when they've observed something, too many times in the past, we've not believed children, we've gaslit them. And so I think that it's important when a kid said, I have this experience, we believe them, we trust them, and then we help them explore that so that they can learn to self regulate, love themselves, deal with the world around them, and not let it get them down.
Yes, that's beautiful. I love that. So let's chat a little bit about your book, because that is going to be an invaluable, or I'm sure it is already an invaluable resource for people who want to know about unschooling and what unschooling looks like. So maybe you can share a little bit about maybe the process of writing the book, why you chose to write it, and maybe also where they can get access to the book as well.
Okay. Oh, interesting question. Process of writing it. That's interesting. So, I guess first and foremost, the process was just living my best and worst life. I think that's important as an author to like live full experiences and not be afraid to have different experiences. So the book opens up with us literally running away from New York City. And I was pregnant in labor when we left New York. And so that was a journey in and of itself. We are both home birthers and road birthers because we left when I was in labor, and halfway there, halfway to here, rather, baby was like, I'm ready. So it's just living this life that doesn't look like the norm. You know, when women find out they're pregnant, the first thing they do is panic. Oh my gosh, what am I going to do? And it's like, nothing. Chill, go eat, drink some water. Okay, now I'm in labor. What am I going to do? Freak out, emergency. And it's not an emergency, it's a normal, natural part of the continuation of life. But we're taught so much of the wrong things and so much fear based things that we freak out, panic, and give our autonomy over to some authority who pokes and prods at us. And so the process of writing the book was really sitting down and making those hard choices to say, what would I do in a situation if? What would I do to support my family on this journey? And it's every page by page is looking to say, where do we find science? Looking out the window. How do we learn about life? We watch the bugs and the animals. How do we feed ourselves? We grow food. We do all these different things, play games, and honor our bodies. And I'm just telling that story through showcasing what unschooling could look like. Doesn't have to. Everybody's different. I've been thinking about doing like a city version as opposed to a country version, but what it could look like by simply saying, I'm going to make one choice to follow my heart and stick with it, even when it's uncomfortable. So that was the process of writing it. And the inspiration really came from there not being any representation. We go to the library at least once or twice a week. We go to bookstores. We consume kids' television. But there are no stories where people like my kids are represented. There's no story about the homeschool lifestyle, right? Everything is back to school this, or diary of a kid who's dealing with bullying, or a kid struggling in school. There's so many titles where it's a kid struggling in school. And to me, it's like, wait, the writing is on the wall, it's on the shelves. School is bad because if you've got to write tales that tell you how to overcome the struggles of it, you're not really saying what the benefit of it is. It's just struggle, 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 and hope to be an adult and get away from the struggle. I wanted to create something that was more imaginative, more inspirational, and discovery based for kids like mine who are homeschool and unschool, so they can see themselves on the pages, so they can get ideas that are outside of their environment, so they can be exposed to different things. So we have two series. That's Unschool Discoveries. That's basically learning through discovery in and outside your own environment. But then we have a world schooling version, which is Enchanted Tent, where the kids go into this magical tent and travel the world wherever their father has to work. And basically, they get to have this world schooling experience that not every child might be able to have because of financial reasons, but can now have through these stories that otherwise aren't being told in the mass publishing media, if you will. And you can get the book at unschooldiscoveries.com.
I didn't actually think about that, but it's so true. There are so many stories about the negativity of school. Oh my gosh. That is
Yeah,
so, that's like a light bulb moment. That is so
yeah,
true. Oh my goodness. And, or homeschoolers are strange. There's that kind of
that,
trope as well, especially
yeah.
in the media. Okay, that's awesome. And obviously, I'll link all of that in the show notes. So thank you so much for sharing about that. Okay, it's been absolutely wonderful chatting to you today, Danii, to hear about your unschooling experiences and also tips for people who are thinking about it. And I'm sure they're going to feel much more informed about unschooling and empowered. I think that's important, empowered to give it a go. So thank you so much for your time today.
You're welcome. Thank you so much. I appreciate being able to share with you and your audience.
I really hope you enjoyed the episode. Please let me know what your greatest takeaway was. You can reach out to me on Instagram at charlottejones247 or on my website at mylittlehomeschool.com, or you could even drop me an email at hello@mylittlehomeschool.com. I'd be ever so grateful if you could rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast. It will help spread the news about being a working homeschool mom, and in that way we can build this wonderful supportive community together. Thank you so much for listening, and until next time, take care.